Most people won't admit this out loud, but a lot of marriages aren't built on love. They're built on fear, status, and money. Tonight, you're going to hear from a woman who did what many secretly dream of. She married into comfort. Big house, expensive car, no bills to worry about. From the outside, she won. But 30 years later, she says the price she paid was far more than any money she gained. And if you're thinking about choosing security over love, she wants to talk to you before you make the same mistake. We're calling her Maya. When she was 24, she had two choices: a man she truly loved and a man who could give her the life she thought she deserved. She chose the second one. For the next 30 years, her social media looked perfect, while her heart slowly starved. This is the story of the real cost of a perfect life. Stay tuned to hear Maya's full story.
I'm married for money, not for love. And I know what you're thinking, that I was either evil or stupid. But the truth is much uglier than that. I was just scared. I was terrified of being poor like my parents, of struggling the way I watched my mother struggle every single day. So when a rich man held out his hand, I grabbed it. I told myself, love will grow. Money will make everything easier. 30 years later, I wake up in a beautiful house, next to a man I never learned to love, and I would give back every car, every trip, every single designer bag just to feel something real when he says my name. When I was in my early 20s, I thought love was a luxury and money was survival. So when life asked me to choose, I chose wrong. I didn't grow up in a love story. I grew up in a house where the loudest sound was money. Not because we had it, but because we didn't. My earliest memories are of my parents whisper fighting at the kitchen table about rent, school fees, and which bill could be late just one more month. My mother's face was a map of worry lines. My father's silence was heavier than any shout. I remember one night, I was maybe 10. My mother was washing dishes in cold water because the gas had been cut off again. She looked at my father and said, "I'm tired of choosing which bill to pay and which dream to kill." I pretended not to hear, but that sentence became the soundtrack of my childhood. Love in our house wasn't flowers. Love was my father working 2 jobs. Love was sacrifice, and it always looked exhausted. I made a quiet promise to myself. I will not live like this. My life will be comfortable, no matter what it costs. I didn't know then how dangerous that promise would become. If this sounds familiar, subscribe to hear the rest of my story. By the time I was 24, life had placed 2 men in front of me, like 2 different doors. The first was Arjun. He was a school teacher, not rich, with soft eyes and ink-stained fingers. We'd talk for hours about books and music, losing all track of time. He used to say, "If we have each other and enough to eat, we'll figure the rest out." Then there was Rajat. He arrived in a car that cost more than my parents' house. His watch, his shoes, his voice, everything about him screamed wealth. He was polite, sent flowers, and took me to fancy restaurants. His future sounded like a brochure. Vacations, a big house, never having to struggle. My family, especially my mother, adored him. She once told me, "Love comes and goes. Security is rare. Don't be stupid." That night, I thought of Arjun's promise of one day, and for the first time, that dream felt dangerous. For months, I was living a double life. My days with Arjun were vibrant and full of color. We'd share cheap coffee, inside jokes, and take long walks just to avoid crowded buses. He spoke about his students with this incredible passion, a light in his eyes that money could never, ever buy. He had dreams of writing a book, traveling, and raising kids who knew they were loved. Then there were my days with Rajat. They felt like a smooth, silent elevator, always going up. He talked about investments, properties, and business trips. He never asked about my favorite book. Instead, he'd ask if I preferred a seaview villa or a mountain one. When Rajat proposed, it wasn't romantic. It was in a quiet, expensive restaurant. He just presented a ring and said, "Maya, I can give you a life where you never have to worry like your parents did. Marry me, and you'll be safe." That word, safe, hit me harder than "I love you" ever could. That night, I made a deal with myself. I told myself the story so many of us do. Love will grow. Money makes things easier. You can't build a life on feelings alone. You're being smart, not selfish. I thought of my mother's tired hands, my father's weary shoulders, and the idea of never hearing the word overdue again. The next day, I met Arjun in the park. He brought my favorite chocolate and a list of cheap places we could rent together. When I told him about the proposal, his face went silent, then pale. But, I thought, he started, but couldn't finish. I said the words. Marrying Rajat felt like walking onto a movie set. The wedding was massive, dazzling lights, sparkling jewelry, endless photos, and constant admiration. Everyone kept saying, "You're so lucky. You've won the lottery." Our new home was incredible, with marble floors and a kitchen bigger than my parents' entire house. For a while, I just went with it. New clothes, lavish family trips, dinners where no one even glanced at the prices. On Instagram, my life looked like a dream, the girl who escaped poverty. But when the guests left and the photos were posted, the silence in our perfect house was deafening. Rajat and I were like polite roommates with matching rings. We didn't fight, but we didn't really laugh either. Whenever I tried to share something real, he'd say, "Don't think about the past. We have everything now. Just enjoy." I slowly realized that money had solved my old problems, but it created a new kind of poverty, one where my heart was starving. I was never cold or broke, but I was deeply, quietly lonely. And that's one thing you can't filter and post on Instagram. Years passed, and we had 2 beautiful kids. They grew up never worrying about school fees or electricity bills. I gave them everything I never had: lessons, trips, clothes, all the toys they wanted. I kept telling myself, even if I'm not happy as a wife, at least I'm a good mother. Their life will be better. But children notice the things you think you're hiding so well. One evening, my daughter, who was about 10, was drawing at the table. Out of nowhere, she asked, "Mama, why do you never smile when Papa comes home? You smile for photos, but not when he walks in." The pencil just slipped from my fingers. I wanted to deny it, to blame it on being tired or stressed. But in that moment, I realized my children had never seen real, warm love. They saw comfort and routine, but not joy. In trying to save them from the pain of poverty, I had shown them a different kind of pain, a home without warmth. The cracks just got wider from there. One ordinary day, I opened my laptop and saw a name I hadn't seen in years: Arjun. A friend had shared a video of him giving a talk at a small school. He had gray in his hair now, lines at the corners of his eyes, but his smile was exactly the same. He was talking about books, about teaching kids to believe they were more than just their grades. His eyes still had that incredible light. Beside him in the video stood a woman and 2 kids, his wife and children. They didn't look rich. Their clothes were simple, but the way they looked at each other, there was a warmth in that frame that my entire mansion couldn't buy. I watched that 2-minute clip over and over. For the first time in years, I asked myself out loud, what did you really buy, Maya? And what did you sell to get it? Everyone thinks marrying for money means you get to live like a queen. But here's what they don't see. They don't see the birthdays at fancy restaurants where you feel like a guest at your own party. They don't see the arguments you just let go, because you don't love the person enough to fight for anything real. They don't see you flinch when your phone lights up with a message from someone you once loved. You don't open it, telling yourself you're happily married now, but your heart races like a thief. They don't see the mornings you wake up in a huge, empty bed, feeling more alone than you ever did in your tiny childhood room. Money solved a lot of problems. Sure, you can pay someone to clean, to cook, to handle almost any inconvenience, but you can't outsource feeling truly known and deeply loved. And that part I threw away myself. If you're watching this, and you're standing where I once stood between love and money, between fear and faith, please listen to me as if I am your future self. I am not going to romanticize poverty. Struggle is real. Security matters. But here is what 30 years taught me. Money can buy comfort, not connection. Fear is a terrible matchmaker. If your main reason for marrying someone is for their money, you are not choosing a partner. You are choosing a human-shaped insurance policy. Every practical decision has an emotional bill. It might not show up in your 20s, but one day, your heart will come to collect, and your children learn love from watching you. Do you want them to copy your marriage? You deserve both safety and sincerity. If I could go back, I wouldn't choose a poorer life. I would choose a braver one, with someone I could count coins with and still feel rich.
Maya didn't come here to tell you money doesn't matter. She came to tell you it's not enough. You don't have to repeat her story. You can ask the harder questions now, before you say yes to a ring, before you trade your heart for a house. If this story touched you, take 10 minutes after this video. Ask yourself, am I choosing this relationship from love or from fear? Would I still choose this person if all their money disappeared tomorrow? Is this the kind of love I would want my children to copy? In the comments, you don't have to share names or details, just answer one question. What is one thing you refuse to sacrifice for money anymore? If you want more real stories like this, from people who have lived the consequences you are still only imagining, subscribe to Borrowed Wisdom Stories. Listen to them now while you still have time to choose differently.